Hey, Verballers. Navy Federal is proud to serve over 8 million members and is open to active duty military, the DoD, veterans, and their family members. Receive a lifetime of membership benefits like a credit card APR average that is 4% lower than the industry's, member-only exclusive rates, and more. Visit NavyFederal.org/solid for more information. Call 1-888-842-6328 or download the Navy Federal Credit Union app today. Message and data rates may apply. Visit NavyFederal.org for more information.
Welcome to the Solid Verbal.
The Solid Verbal.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
I've heard so many players say, well, I want to be happy. You want to be happy for a day? Eat a steak.
It's that woo woo!
And now, Dan and Ty.
Welcome back to the Solid Verbal, boys and girls. My name is Ty Hildenbrandt. Joining me, as always, over there in springy New York City, Dan Rubenstein. Sir, how are you?
Ty, I have a business proposition for you and for us and for Solid Verbal Media.
Ooh, now hold on, pause.
Yeah.
Is this my long-running greatest idea ever of starting an Ottoman-only department store titled the Ottoman Empire?
No, we can't build businesses solely to satisfy your pun.
I'm telling you, this would work.
But it's not fully far off from that.
Okay.
So you saw the news story that dominated the headlines, tangentially related to college football, but not really, with college coaches and administrators in on a scheme with SAT people and wealthy parents who are trying to get their kids into USC or Yale or Stanford, these bigger, more interesting, I don't know if they're more interesting, but more prestigious in certain ways schools, right?
Yeah, Aunt Becky ensnared in that one.
Yes, and Felicity Huffman.
Right.
And part of the scheme involved using college sports teams as ways for these kids to, they're prospects, they're recruits. We're not going through the normal student avenue to apply to get into USC or Stanford or Yale or Georgetown or any of these schools. We're going to try and apply as a prospective student athlete and therefore bypass the normal channels.
That's right.
And have a coach say, yes, accept this person. They are somebody I'm interested in. And because these sports are not necessarily scholarship sports, and it's more difficult with a sport like football or basketball.
Sure, I gotcha.
Until the Solid Verbal comes around and gives credibility to whoever needs it as a college football recruit on whatever level, just very casually saying, hey, Ty, did you see Ian Fingelson is a pretty interesting H-back out of Duluth, Minnesota.
You do realize that this will be Exhibit A in our conspiracy trial.
What I will say is it was all a joke.
Right. Okay, that works.
It was all a timely joke.
That works.
And so because people know we are largely full of nonsense on this show,
sure,
they will ignore this very seriousness, wink, wink, of this scheme that I've devised. So The problem with football is that, especially at big schools, everybody knows the recruits. Everybody knows the pretty substantial.
You have thought an awful lot about
stars.
this, haven't you? I'm picking this up here. You really spent some time thinking this through.
Ty, I've got a kid now.
Yeah,
college isn't getting any cheaper. Mm-hmm. Diapers aren't cheap.
Nope.
Sports media isn't what it used to be.
No, it is not. It really isn't.
So what I am proposing, Ty, we're not recording this, right?
I don't think we are actually, yes.
What I am always play along, Ty.
Yeah.
What I am proposing is we give that very organic, casual credibility to anybody who wants to be thought of as a serious football recruit. We have had our DMs slid into by coaches and administrators.
This is 100% true.
We have ears, Ty. Mm-hmm. It's probably too late. It is now probably too late.
Scheme theme is taking on a whole new meaning in 2019, yes.
I think the jig may be up. Maybe this is the second. Remember Napster tried to go again?
Yeah.
Like after everything went awry, after Metallica got their 2 to 3 cents, maybe this is our second wave of the jig.
Anyway, welcome back to the show.
Fight on.
I'm Ty. He is Dan. You can always write in solidverbal@gmail.com. Where else? Well, we're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We've been a little bit more active on Instagram as of late, posting some of the trials and tribulations here of the college football offseason.
Slide into our DMs there.
Yeah,
Say
wherever,
hi.
man. Wherever.
Yeah.
We've also got a subreddit started by Verballers for Verballers at reddit.com/r/solidverbal. Of course, you can download the show wherever you get your podcasts. And I wanted to ask you before we go much further, because I know we got to talk about the Pac-12, and you did an interview with Bruce that we want to get to, but the college basketball tournament is set to start next week. I have not watched a second of college basketball all year.
Okay.
All year. But typically we do our pool here for a free t-shirt.
Yes, we do.
Just wanted to verify that you were still game
I'm
to
in.
do that.
I'm ready. Yes, of course.
Yeah? Okay.
We
Well,
have Mama H in there. We have Solid Wife Kate. We have Jody with an I. We might have the Solid Baby fill out a bracket somehow. I'll figure out a way. Mama and Papa Rubenstein. Sure. It's a family affair. And you haven't watched it. I've watched some college basketball because I do a show on ESPN Plus for our friends at the Action Network with some college basketball and gambling during the spring. So
well,
I've watched
okay.
some.
We
and
are
I've
in the
paid
presence
attention.
of royalty. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, all right.
Yeah.
Stay tuned on the Twitter, the Facebook. We'll post it on Instagram.
It'll be on ESPN, right? So if you go to that ESPN, it's called generally like the bracket challenge.
Yeah, the tournament challenge. It'll be there. It's
if you
the
look
same
up
group.
the Solid Verbal, it will be easily found.
It's the same group that it's always been, but we'll send out notice as best we can through all the social channels and jump on in a couple times if you want. We don't care. And if you win, you get a free shirt.
Oh, it's great. So soft.
Okay. With that being said, Dan, what are we talking about today?
So we're talking, I mean, you've seen the title. It's the Pac-12 Autopsy show. We've done SEC, ACC, and Big 12. So now we just have the Big 10 in terms of Power 5 conferences. I'd like to do some Group of 5 as well. But today is Pac-12. We have Bruce Feldman, who has been on this show for basically as long as the show has existed.
Yep.
A good friend of the show. And before we get into that, though, I just want to bounce things off of each other.
Please.
With regard to where the Pac-12, not as much. I talked about this with Bruce a little bit at the end of it, the perception of the conference and all of the everything is crumbling, it's falling apart, the Roman Empire. No. To you, off-season stories, the way that you look back on how the Pac-12 season ended, the way you feel about things as you look way into the future about the 2019 season for the Pac-12, is it just USC and upheaval there that's defining the moment? What else stands out to you?
I think in light of what we saw on the recruiting trail, I'm very intrigued for the next chapter of the Chip Kelly era at UCLA.
Sure.
UCLA did not set the world on fire.
Had moments.
From a recruiting standpoint, I'm talking.
Correct. Yes.
Did not set the world on fire there. I am way more interested, I think, in what I see as turmoil with a few teams in the South. Not that I'm not interested in where Washington State goes now, and certainly Washington and Oregon, who I think could have a really good year. But, I'm interested in USC, that next chapter, as you mentioned. What happens at USC? UCLA, what is the next chapter for them? Colorado's got a new coach in Mel Tucker. We talked about Mel Tucker a couple shows ago.
Yeah.
Brandon Huffman talked about how he thought that was actually a really good fit. It looked like it was working out well. And then, at the end of the day, I'm just real curious to know how Utah is going to manage to win 9 games again.
Sure. And
defy the odds, despite, I know, come August, we're going to look at Utah and say, they're a 7-5 team.
Yeah, we'll be wrong like we are every year.
Every year, they win 9 games.
I in my mind, UCLA is incredibly intriguing, not necessarily in the short term, but and you are in this business. You are quite literally in the business of when a website gets redesigned, an app gets redesigned. Sorry, excuse me. You are in the information technology business.
That was better. That was better.
Yes. When a website gets completely overhauled and redesigned, or a new operating system comes out, what happens? Everybody hates it, right? Mm-hmm. I was like, where's the menu? And then a week later, 2 weeks later, it's either still really bad, or people just get used to it. People just move on. I'm curious, both as it relates to Chip Kelly and his career and his legacy as a college coach, and for UCLA, what this, whatever it is, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, redesign, reboot, refresh, what we end up thinking about at the end of 2019 with it. That is incredibly intriguing to me. The USC turmoil upheaval, that's all well documented. I am genuinely excited to see what their offense evolves into with Graham Harrell. The Arizona schools, is Khalil Tate good again? What does ASU look like in year 2 of Herm without Todd Graham guys? How deep are they really? Even though he has recruited pretty well. The Mel Tucker thing is interesting to me. And you mentioned Brandon Huffman. Mel Tucker, I believe, is the one new Pac-12 coach. And I think I am more excited than I am skeptical of him. But I'd like to see what they look like on the recruiting trail and how much they go about doing things in an even slightly unorthodox way. I would have loved for Colorado to have hired the Princeton offensive coordinator who ended up at Oklahoma State. Like, I felt like that out of the box hire would have been really nice at Colorado, because it really doesn't seem like they're going to be able to pull in top 20 classes. But it's a great place to go to school, and it's a picturesque experience in Boulder. I'm curious about that. Utah, I don't think there's anything new to wonder about with Utah. Utah's Utah under Kyle Whittingham.
I just look at this and I see a tale of two cities, with the north being the Sim City with the cool arcologies, and things are bright and sunny and looking up, and the south being just maybe that side that's going to have a tornado or an earthquake.
Natural disasters are turned up to 10.
A high crime rate in that area. It's
a lot of rioting.
Yeah, a lot going on in the South that I think makes it more interesting on the surface.
With Utah, just like, they have a rent-controlled building, and things are going pretty well.
Yep.
People are paying their rent. There's a nice little courtyard. Up north, though, I'm for sure optimistic about Oregon, but am also very much in prove-it mode. You tell me Justin Herbert's a top 5 pick. You tell me they've recruited super well. I saw what they look like on the road last year. Show me. Prove it. Let's see it. Washington should once again be very good. Wazoo is the most fun wild card in the conference, and I'm worried Stanford is trending downward a little bit. I have some worry about that. But otherwise, I think in terms of variability, in terms of storylines, as we've seen year in and year out, when we had the Big 12 sky is falling, they're going down to 10 teams. They can't attract anybody to join the conference. And the only teams they can attract are from the AAC or from whatever conference that really isn't a huge market or a huge athletic program. And then suddenly they make the playoff. Baker Mayfield goes number 1 overall.
I know.
Coaching turnover. And the Big 12 becomes the most entertaining conference in college football. So what it tells me, it's not necessarily that it's cyclical. It's just hard to stay depressing for very long in college football.
Things can change very quickly.
Yeah.
Can change very, very quickly.
That's where my head is at.
All right. Well, Dan, I also wanted to point out that every man looks better, feels better, is more confident in general when he puts on a suit, especially if it's an Indochino suit, as you know.
Agree.
They're the world's most exciting made-to-measure menswear company. They've got suits and shirts that fit your exact measurements for unparalleled comfort, Dan. All you got to do is either visit a stylist at an Indochino showroom.
They're all over the place, by the way.
Which you and I are going to do. We're going to do this together.
Correct.
Sometime this summer.
Yes.
You go to a showroom, you get your measurements taken, or you can measure at home, and then you just shop online at Indochino.com. That's INDOCHINO.com. You choose your fabrics, your colors, any design customizations like the lapel, linings, pockets, buttons, monograms, you name it. Then you submit it. You relax. Your suit is going to get professionally made and mailed to you in just a couple of weeks. Our listeners can get any premium Indochino suit for $359 at Indochino.com when you enter the code SOLID, SOLID, at checkout. 50% off the regular price for a made-to-measure premium suit. Shipping is free. Indochino.com, promo code SOLID. Any premium suit, just $359 in free shipping.
Damn.
An incredible deal. Premium made-to-measure suit. Once you go custom, you're not going to want to go back. Check it out. INDOCHINO.com. Your promo code is SOLID.
How slim are you willing to go with this suit?
How slim?
How slim? Do you have obstructions to going real slim? Like, do you have weirdly shaped legs in any way? Because it's custom. They'll make it work for you.
Yeah. I don't know what you mean by I don't. It doesn't need to be form-fitting slim.
I think it's gotta be.
No, I don't want form-fitting slim.
Give Kate the gift she's been begging for. I think we should find an escalator to do that Rain Man lately scene where we're coming down an escalator together in suits with some sunglasses on. I think that's what we have to. I don't know where an escalator will be around here, but I'll find one.
Lehigh Valley Mall. We could do it.
Done.
All right. On that note, Daniel did an interview with our good friend Bruce Feldman from The Athletic and Fox Sports. Have a listen. We'll pick it up on the flip side.
And with that, we now bring in our long time, dear friend, Bruce Feldman from The Athletic and from Fox Sports on a sideline near you. He's a TV star. He's a podcasting star. He's an on-the-page star. Are you in any other mediums right now?
No, that is it. You've covered my whole profile. So
great. I am glad to have done it. Here's my question before we start in with the Pac-12 teams and our Pac-12 autopsy. A story came out that Larry Scott is staying in a $7,500 a night suite in Las Vegas for the Pac-12 tournament. I have no idea how true any of these numbers are. What is the nicest hotel room you have ever stayed in as somebody who is constantly in hotel rooms?
It's actually in the Vegas area.
Okay.
I had some buddies who had a hookup in, was it like the Green Valley Ranch or Green Valley?
Ooh, I know. Yeah, it's like Henderson, Nevada.
It is in Henderson, Nevada, and I think we had like 8 flat screen TVs in the place. We got a deal, and we got a deal for like $5.99 a night, and that was a deal. I was like, wait, and this was, I don't know, this is 15 years ago or so, but it was an outrageously nice setup we had at that point. That would be the nicest in terms of on the road with Fox. A couple of years ago, we did the big Big 12 title game. We stayed at I want to say the Four Seasons, maybe in Las Colinas. And when we were there, it was the same time the Redskins were playing the Cowboys on a Thursday night game, and the Redskins were staying at a hotel. It was a pretty awesome setup there. But again, I would go with the one in Vegas that really popped.
What's the number one amenity you need? Is it a gym? Is it, high water pressure? Is it a super comfortable bed, dependable Wi-Fi? What is the one atop all amenity mountains?
Ooh, that's good. I would say a great gym really stands out. Our TV crew last year, we would joke we're the fittest crew in college football.
That's true.
And we loved a couple of the places we had that had like real big gyms and setups as opposed to, I remember we had the Apple Cup, and there were 3 of us in the workout room, which was like literally like a closet anyplace else. And so where you'd have to like stretch outside in the hall or outside literally while other people were like on the one elliptical. So I would say probably gym. That's the number one thing.
This is you, Joe Davis, and Brady Quinn.
Yes.
Okay. I can see that. I don't know which crew would rival that. I'm trying to think of like former linebackers that are in crazy shape. Chris Spielman is not. No, I think that's probably Herb Street and Fowler's not bad.
No, but I mean, like right now, Brady's still in pretty ridiculous shape. He looks like an NFL tight end. There aren't going to be that many analysts who are in that shape.
Right.
And Joe is young. I mean, Joe is like almost, I don't say he's half the age of Chris, because Chris is in really good shape, whether he's 35 or 50. But Joe is like 31 years old. So I think we all are like huge workout people. So I think that's part of it. I'm probably dragging down the curve. But I did once play basketball against Maria Taylor at TCU one day. She's their sideline person.
How'd you do?
Maria was a college athlete. I mean, she
was
2 sports there. I do remember her trying to post up. It's like, you need to get out of here. This is embarrassing.
Wow. I like it. All right. Let's go to football before you talk about embarrassing basketball stories. Give me a number between 1 and 12. We will attack this randomly, and so I don't select teams I want to talk about more than others, and you do the same. Number between 1 and 12.
My first number is 8.
8. Okay. We're talking Stanford. Stanford, They have a lot to replace, both with their offensive skill. I think their top 3 or 4 pass catchers are gone. New offensive coordinator that makes us all feel very old in Tavita Pritchard. And I think they're replacing a lot on the back half of their defense. Question to you is, do you think KJ Costello is good enough to will this offense forward? I think I do. Do you?
I do. We did. I've done a couple of KJ Costello games. I'm a believer in him. You're right. They did lose some really good skill guys. The offensive line, which has some talent, it was the first year in the post Mike Bloomgren era. I know a lot of people like Kevin Carberry. He's a Bill Callahan disciple. They worked together in the NFL. He's the O-line coach. I think they have talent there. I'm not sure. To me, they are. And I don't want to get ahead of your script here, but I still think they're probably the 3rd best team in their division. KJ Costello notwithstanding. I think KJ Costello is actually as good as any quarterback will be in the conference.
Okay, fair enough. Give me another number between 1 and 12, just not 8.
12.
All right, number 12 is Washington State, and they looked awesome last year. And that was with a grad transfer quarterback, a total new look coaching staff, replacing a bunch of big deal guys on both sides of the ball. Has Washington State reached the point where anything less than, say, 9 wins is a disappointment, especially in this version of the Pac-12?
It shouldn't be, though. I mean, I would say anything less than 8 wins should be probably a disappointment. 9 wins is, remember, they won 9 games in the whole 4-year Paul Wolf run. Mm-hmm. So I think you got to be realistic. I think last year was somewhat of an aberration. They've never won 11 games until last year. I think a lot of that was on Gardner Minshew and kind of the magic aura he brought to them. He's talented. And I thought Leach had told me, I think before the Apple Cup, he's the best leader we've ever had as a quarterback. And that included his time at Texas Tech. So the receivers are still really good. I think Max Borghi is going to be a really good player for them. They obviously lose Andre Dillard, who's their best offensive lineman. I think it's going to hurt them as much as anything. They're losing Peyton Pallor, who was a really good college player in the middle of that defense. I look at them and think they are going to be probably a 7 or 8 win team. I think Stanford, Oregon, and Washington are better. I mean, look, Washington has whipped them ever since Chris Peterson's got in the conference.
Yep.
Leach was 4-1 last year in games decided by 6 points. Sometimes that swings the other way. I think the road schedule is not going to be easy. They got to go. Even those teams that I mentioned, and by the way, Cal has held them to less than 10 points a game since Justin Wilcox has been the head coach there the last 2 years.
Yep.
So I don't know. I looked at the over-under on the season win totals, and I don't think Washington State's I think they're going to take a little dip here.
All right. A number between 1 through 12, not number 12 or number 8.
Number 1.
Number 1. Let's talk USC. See, we waited till the 3rd team to talk USC. That's how democratic this is. And after last year ended, and with how the offseason has gone, is there a sense that USC's 2019 potential is, maybe the word is capped, or is there hope USC can almost overachieve with a down Pac-12 and still a considerable talent advantage most of the time?
If you're USC, overachieving is going to the playoff in this case.
Okay.
I mean, I know they won 5 games, but you still have better talent than anybody in your division, at least. Mm-hmm. And they have 3 young players in there at all 3 levels on the defense who I know, people, I was at the NFL Combine 2 weeks ago, and there 3 guys were mentioned. They're all like freshmen or last year. They have talent.
Right.
I'm curious to see how the Graham Harrell transition without O-line coach who is, he brought or has familiarity in the scheme. They have really good receivers. Their offensive line's been disappointing. I think they'll be better with Graham Harrell there, and they'll have more of an identity. But I don't know if they're going to be more than an 8-win team. You look at that first 6 games they have, it's rough. And if they're 3-3. And there's a blowout or 2 in there, which is entirely possible when you look who they play, they could pull the plug on Clay Helton and try to get a head start on the coaching search. So I don't know. I'm not optimistic. I think 8-4 is probably about as high as I'll go with that group.
Is there belief, do you think, among the players in this coaching staff? Obviously, externally, fans, administrators, the belief is sort of wavering in the Clay Helton staff, but do the players still buy in?
That's a great question. I don't know what the real answer on that is. I guess we'll find out. I mean, from what I had heard before the start of spring football was that that some of the kind of message board kind of panic that you would usually have, that some of that had kind of seeped into the football building. And because you'd have kids go into the transfer portal, and some of the other angst started to mount. So I don't know. That's the challenge, is who is the leadership and how strong is it there inside the locker room? I mean, people are going to be curious to see what's going on, because there's going to be all kinds of rumblings about when you're on such a hot seat there, but the leadership void is real inside USC.
All right, let's stay in LA. I'll make you pick another number shortly, but UCLA going into last year, you on this show talked about the Bruins just plain not having an even decent roster of Pac-12 caliber players. So how much closer are the Bruins now to having that? And overall, do you believe this is what Chip Kelly envisioned, what they would look like between year one and year two?
I think they are closer to being I think they're probably a bowl team now.
Okay.
And I think they're probably a 7-win team. I don't think they have a ton of talent there, but they have pretty much everybody back on defense except for Darius Pickett, who is a really good, solid safety. And they're going to get back Josh Woods, who might have been their best player, but he missed all last year with injury. They have a lot of young guys with a D-line who fit what they want. I think they're still probably not ready, those players, but at least they have guys who have experience in the system, and they know what Kelly and that staff want, not just on the field, but in every aspect of being UCLA football players. I think Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he's talented, and everything I've heard has been very positive of how he continues to develop there. So I think that's a big plus. As far as the skill guys, this ain't Oregon. They do not have dynamic, game-changing guys. They have a couple of guys who can do some, one thing really well. Kaz Allen, who is, I think, Kelly's first recruit there. He's a small freshman who's got a ton of speed, but I think, that expression, he's a track guy, not a football player, or vice versa. I mean, at this point, it feels like he's a track guy. Mm-hmm. And so, where does that go? Joshua Kelly, in our game, we did the USC UCLA game. He ran for almost 300 yards against USC. He was a former 1AA back. It wasn't like he was a great running back in the 1AA level, but he did some nice things, and they got better in the last month of the season. I mean, you look, they averaged almost 500 yards a game in the last month of the season, and like 330 or 350 in the first 2 months. So that clearly shows they're kind of getting a better grasp of what this version of Chip Kelly is doing, as opposed to, I think a lot of people remember from the Oregon days, and he does some things a little bit differently scheme wise. Mm-hmm. But, again, the personnel is still not great. I mean, I would guess that their personnel, they don't have any running back like J.J. Taylor. They don't have the receivers that USC has, and they don't have the physicality on both lines and the maturity that Utah has. So, I think they're probably right now, I think they go from 3 wins to maybe 7. Wow. Maybe they can get to 8. I don't know. But I think the key thing with him more than anything is development and guys who understand and believe in what they're doing. And I think that's where the transition has kind of been, take us, 2 steps forward, 1 step back in some ways.
All right, let's go to Oregon then, because it's obviously Chip's former school. The Ducks will get a lot of top of conference attention because of Justin Herbert and recent recruiting. But to what extent are you a believer in the rest of this team and this coaching staff as conference contender? Ooh, this is gonna be good. This is alliteration. Conference contender caliber, especially when they face planted last year. They really face planted in those first halves against Wazoo and Arizona and Utah.
Yeah, look, they have good frontline talent. I think they're still building up the depth. They're going to miss Dylan Mitchell. They had one really good receiver, and he was it.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to be really good on the offensive line. That's a big plus. I like Justin Herbert as a guy. I think he's a great student off the field. He's got a lot of talent. You wonder if he's gotten, when people talk about him as the first pick in the draft if he will come in, I'm a little skeptical of that.
Same.
I don't think, I don't see that at this point. Defensively, they're okay. I like the hire of Andy Avalos. He did really well at Boise State. Well, here's what concerns me about Oregon. I think Oregon's a top 20 team, but here's what concerns me about them. They were not a good team on the road last.
Nope.
You look, they get drilled at Pullman. They get absolutely smashed by a very mediocre Arizona team. They get beat at Utah. That's not good. I mean, basically the only place they went to that they won was Corvallis. That isn't a far trip. And I'm sorry, they did win. They did win at Cal. So
they won at Cal. Yep.
That's not bad. Yeah. But that part concerns me, especially when you look at now where they have to go. Washington State was a pretty good team last year, but Arizona wasn't, and they got blown out there. I mean, they lost at Utah. That's not an easy place to play. But now you're talking about, having to go to Washington, having to go to Stanford. Those are not going to be easy trips. So, and they have a tough opener, but right now I'm pumped the brakes on Oregon. I think they're a top 15-ish kind of team. I don't know if they're more than that until they show that they can really do it on the road.
I think that's right. Yeah. No, it sounds reasonable. And we can then talk about a team that has had a higher ceiling recently in Washington, Oregon's, I think, chief rival at this point until Oregon State sort of gets back to a more respectable level. And even with losing what they lost this year, especially on defense, they've built a wrecking crew on that side of the ball. It's consistent coaching and recruiting. Why has the offense struggled to keep up? They've built up the experience. Was it just sort of a Jake Browning has a ceiling and he is going to have 2.5 total dud games every year, and that's sort of that? Is there something beyond that?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I think you also had Bush Hamden kind of growing into the role as a play caller there, as offensive coordinator. I think the receiver play was pretty underwhelming. We'll see if Junior Adams, who comes in highly touted, what kind of impact he can make with a younger group of receivers. They've redshirted some kids who are very hyped. We'll see if they can deliver. One of the bigger storylines on the West Coast is going to be Jacob Eason, who was once ranked a 5-star. Is he that, or is he the guy some folks inside the Georgia program are a little skeptical of?
What do you think?
I'm not. I'm not sure he's going to be the 5-star guy.
Okay.
I think some of the things that the people inside Georgia were leery of are the kinds of things that I feel like the recruiting guys may not see, which is how well does he find open receivers? How accurate is he? I mean, no doubt he's legit big, 6'5", and he's got a really, really strong arm. But if he can't connect with open receivers and see defense as well, that great arm isn't going to help him that much, and I feel like the expectations are really, really high. And I would be a little more cautious on that. They also lost Myles Gaskin, who is the all-time leading rusher there. So I still think they're probably the best team on the West Coast, because I think that defensively, even with the secondary guys they lost, they've recruited so well on the back end.
Yep.
And I still think they have some really good young D linemen too. Couple that with the talent I think they have in the secondary. I think Jimmy Lake I'd be surprised if he has a bad defense as long as he's there. And I think they have really good personnel and they have an identity there. They should be pretty good on the O-line. So I think they have enough. It's just, if they're going to be a team that's going to make noise in the playoff, gets the playoff and then make noise, Jacob Eason needs to be the 5-star guy that he was hyped to be. I think they're a team that can win the Pac-12 just because I don't think the Pac-12 is very good. I think it's bad in the South. It's bad in the Pac-12 South. And I think I don't know. I think they just have an experience and a savvy that Oregon doesn't have, and I just don't think Stanford has enough firepower to overtake them.
Another team without firepower, and it's heartbreaking to watch them because the defense has been so good recently and has been good against Washington, is Cal. And they're another team they just need the offense to be average to win more games because that defense, especially the back end, has been so good. So are you buying at all into Cal offensive improvement, or is it just a matter of they need to have at least like 11, 14 more dudes that are high Pac-12 caliber until we can really talk about Cal as like an 8-win team?
Yeah, I think they're well coached. I just don't think you said it. I don't think they have the firepower right now. They don't have enough receivers. They don't have, like, a couple of years ago when, Sonny Dykes was there and Jake Spavital was there. They had some really good young receivers. Mm-hmm. They don't have that right now. And quarterback play has been limited. I think they're going to miss Patrick Laird, who was very solid for the last couple of years. I thought they've gotten about as much out of their roster as anybody on the West Coast, with the possible exception of Washington State. And I'm not sure I see it going up much more than that. I mean, are we looking and saying, okay, Chase Garbers or Devin Monster are going to turn out to be, Gardner Minshew? I'm not seeing that. Right. I mean, so I don't know. At this point, I mean, I think they'll be competitive and they'll be tough they'll pull a couple of upsets, but I think they're probably a 6 or 7 win team. I just don't think they have enough firepower to be much more than that.
All right. And a team and it's been a while since we've been at this point, but the clear best receiver in the Pac-12 is Laviska Shenault. I don't even know if anybody can argue that. I don't know who the candidate might be.
I would say he's the clear best offensive player in the league.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty easy argument to be made. And they finished the season, I think, averaging, I want to say 13 points a game in their last 3 or 4 games. And now they start over with a new staff, Mel Tucker. Do you lean in the direction of Colorado being re-energized with health and good experience back on offense with Shenault and Steven Montez? Or is it sort of like a take your lumps kind of year with it's a pretty brutal back half of 2019?
Yeah, I think Mel Tucker will be a good, and when I say short-term fix, I don't mean he's going to fall apart 2 years from now, but I just think he can hit the ground running because Montez, there's a lot to like there. And that consistency sometimes is shaky, but he's very talented. Like I said, I think Shenault is the best offensive player in the league. Mm-hmm. And Katie Nixon is a really good, he's a fire plug and a really dynamic player. They have some concern because, they get a grad transfer last year from Virginia Tech who really gave a boost to the run game. And now they got to resort that out. And I think Mel Tucker's going to want to be physical. And I don't know how he finds that run game to what he's been used to, whether when he was in Tuscaloosa, certainly, last couple of years in Georgia, where they had stud running backs. They have some talent on defense. They have some guys who can really run. I don't know if they have much depth behind it, but I think there are some pieces for them to work with. I think they're a bowl team.
Okay.
But I don't know. Again, I like Steven Montez, but they got to help him more with a run game. And I don't know how they manufacture that. So maybe they're a 6-6 kind of team, unless somewhere along the way they find like a stud to kind of really take some of the pressure off of Laviska. And I mean, like I said, they have some other wide receivers who are good players, but I just don't know if they can. It feels like they'd be a little more one-dimensional. I don't want Steven Montez to be the biggest threat in the backfield running either, or on the jet sweep stuff, whatever they do with Laviska.
Right, fair. Another player who I think has the potential to be the best player in the conference offensively because of what he did 2 years ago, it's probably still Khalil Tate. He decides to come back to Arizona after there were rumors of him transferring elsewhere. And the story last year was how comfortable is he in this offense? How beat up is he? There were rumors of injuries and he did sit out a game. So do you think there's confidence from the coaching staff after he didn't transfer that he's turned a corner, especially after he had a really good November last year.
I heard there was, but again, we need to see him be really dynamic. And look, these are the things that made you great. Don't diminish them. Like I said, I mean, JJ Taylor's a fantastic running back. They have some playmakers around him. If he's the guy he was in 2017, they're a top 25 team. If he plays like he did in the first month of the season, they're not going to a bowl game. So again, what does he want to do? And I don't have a great read on that because until we see what he's doing in the games and how, dialed into that, that's a big X factor for them. They're such a hard team to read, I think, because of, Kevin Sumlin's had some great runs with guys like this, and then he's, had some head scratching moments, and this is where I don't know where they're going to be right now.
That's all. That seems fair. I really want 2017 Khalil Tate, just because we don't have anybody else right now in college football who is that kind of dynamic threat at his best. No,
I mean, that's the thing is you wonder, was somebody in his head saying, hey, don't do it this way? I don't know the answer to that, but it was definitely a little bit of that. Okay. It was a big disappointment.
So let's stay in state. ASU they were actually quietly pretty good down the stretch. They ran away from Utah. I think that was when Tyler Huntley got hurt, though. They took Oregon to the wire in Eugene. But as we enter into year 2 of this staff, do you expect things to lean, again, this is the lump thing that I was talking about with Colorado, but this is year 2. Do they take lumps after losing some really big Todd Graham guys, or do they build on their strong finish with some interesting pieces on the back half of that defense?
I don't know. I mean, Manny Wilkins played a ton of football for them. Obviously, N'Keal Harry was just a real go-to guy. Mm-hmm. They still have Benjamin. I feel weird, saying this just because I wasn't on the Herm bandwagon to start with, and he delivered better than I thought he did.
They were really competitive all year.
They were, and they beat Michigan State, which was a good win, maybe not a great win in retrospect, but it was about as good a out-of-conference win as anybody else had. I don't know if they're going to get much better, though. I really don't. Count me still skeptical on this.
Okay. And that team that they did beat comfortably, Utah, they come out of the gate last year scoring like 8 points a game, and then they score something like 40 a game in October, and then it was a nightmare against Washington and Northwestern. They're the most consistently pretty good team in the conference. Are they getting any closer to that on offense now, especially that they lose their offensive coordinator?
I think they're the closest thing to a sure thing. Not necessarily a sure thing like they're going to win the conference, but I feel like what you're getting. They have key injuries and they still kind of play through because they're so tied into his identity of being physical. Bradley Anae is one of the best defensive players in the conference. Mm-hmm. They're going to lose some good guys in the middle of the defense who could run down a bunch of plays and make plays. But I still think with them, and again, they had key injuries at quarterback and running back, and they still played for the conference title and were right there against Washington. And they were close to winning it. So I think they're the team, and I've said this before, just from when you do games and you're on the sideline for games, there is no team that is more of an eye-opener to watch play than Utah. If you just kind of like, I don't know how they, Whittingham's a good coach. I don't know how he does it. When you see them from field level, you know exactly how they do it because they're super physical. They're a good tackling team, and they're pretty much tougher than just about everybody they play. So, if Tyler Huntley, who does some really good things, if he really can stay healthy and continue to build on it, they can. Not only can they play for it, they're a top 15 team. Then, they. I don't know if they're more than that, but again, I think they're very, very good, and I think they'll be very, very good again.
Final team is Oregon State, whose limitations are pretty clear. But what are the positive takeaways from a pretty brutal 2018, and are any of those meaningful moving forward?
Jamar Jefferson, probably the best kept secret on the West Coast. There's a defense coordinator I talked to about talent, and he was like, I said, who's the best running back you saw? And Jamar Jefferson's name came up. he's big time, and that's a good piece for Jonathan Smith to build. He's had a couple of grad transfers who I think will help them. I think they're going to get better. I don't know how much further they're going to go. Can they push past what Cal is? And that's a pretty heavy division right now. I mean, I know that it's not like there's an Alabama right now in there where you have a consistent playoff team, but Washington's very good. I think you should look at how Mario Cristobal is recruiting at Oregon now, and you know that they're going to have talent. They're going to be good. Stanford's not going away. Mike Leach is always going to be a problem, and I think Justin Wilcox has showed he knows how to coach. So here we are now. I mean, you have a really good running back. What are the other pieces you have around? I don't know. Is that enough? I don't know at this point.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it now, but could be interesting later. Big picture. This has been an off season in the conference that has been characterized by some combination of disappointment and perceived disappointment. It was the big series in the Oregonian about Larry Scott and Pac-12 expenses, and they're not winning enough. And Rick Neuheisel says it's because they're not enough 320-pound dudes that are good. Where do you fall on the sky is falling, it's DEFCON 1, the Pac-12 has a nightmare on its hands? Are you fully bought into an emergency situation, or do you think it is slightly different?
I think it's slightly different. And I think that there is enough D linemen in the Pac-12 footprint to be as good as you need to be. The key is recruiting the right ones and not losing them.
Yeah.
I mean, LSU got a guy from Salt Lake City that one of the coaches in the Pac-12 told me he thinks might be the best defensive tackle in the country. You got to win that recruiting battle and keep him in. Maybe 3 years ago, that kid's a USC Trojan. Now he's an LSU Tiger. He's 6'3", 360, really explosive and physical. And that's the kind of guy that you need to keep in the conference, and I think so. Those are significant. USC has some of those kinds of guys that they don't have enough of them, and they've struggled to develop them or keep them on track.
Right.
And I think that's what's hurt. I mean, there's two guys who start for the San Francisco 49ers defensive line who are as good looking, specimens as you're going to see.
Yep.
They both played at Oregon, right? Where's Haloti Ngata from? I mean, you have where's Ndamukong Suh from? Those guys, they didn't grow up in Georgia. I'm not saying there aren't guys like that, because Lord knows there's a ton of guys like that in the Southeast. But there's plenty of those guys who are in all over the West Coast. There's a bunch in California. There's a bunch in Utah. There's a handful in the Pacific Northwest. I mean, the thing I would say, and I'm curious as to your thought on this.
Yeah.
I feel like the recruiting evaluator guys, and I think they do a good job. We're talking about the online recruiting world, not the coaches, but I think they do a good job. But I think they are usually more resourced in the Southeast and in that part of the country than they're on the West Coast, where I feel like it's Brandon Huffman, it's Greg Biggins, and there's a handful of other guys.
Right.
But I feel like I don't know if they miss more on the West Coast, but like Vita Vea was a 3-star guy from Milpitas in California. You look at Vita Vea, I mean, he's as gifted as any defensive lineman who's come, any big defensive lineman. I don't say necessarily Jadeveon Clowney, but
sure.
He's a massive guy who's a freaky athlete who was a dominant guy at times at Washington, but he wasn't like a blue chip recruit, right? So, I mean, he's from California. Those guys are there. It's just, again, I think it's keeping them in the conference. I really think it comes back to that. But Lord knows there's plenty of quarterbacks out here, and USC. I mean, there's very few schools that have had anywhere near as good a run of receivers as USC has in the last decade, right? It's Juju Smith-Schuster, it's Robert Woods, it's Marquise Lee, Nelson Aguilar. There's a bunch of dudes. The guys they have now are good. Michael Pittman's good. So Amon-Ra St. Brown is good. There are guys out here. It's just I think USC has tailed off in a big way, and I think that's highlighted it.
Here's my big picture thought, and I probably hurt myself thinking, and I don't try to think too hard about college football. But when I saw that, I thought it ignored. When I see that criticism, I think it ignores some pretty obvious realities of the Pac-12. And one of them is, if USC beats Washington State 2 years ago in Pullman and makes it into the playoff at 12-1, are we having this conversation if the Pac-12 has a premier program on a national stage consistently? And I know Washington was in the playoff, and this will come across biased because I can't help but be biased as an Oregon fan. I think on the West Coast, because you are so far away, unless you are a team who has been good and has built up goodwill amongst national college football fans for years and years, like USC did under Pete Carroll and Oregon did under Bellotti and Chip Kelly, that it will take time for people to care about a West Coast team. And so if Arizona runs the table this year, I don't think anybody will care nationally. If Utah runs the table, I don't think it will move a needle. And I think Washington and Washington State being good, I think they both finished in the top 12 this past year. I think people just don't care because they're not, people know Mike Leach, but I don't think they fully trust Washington State because of how bad they were not too long ago. And I think they don't trust Washington because when we've seen them on that national stage, whether it's in the playoff, whether it's against Auburn, whether it's against Ohio State this year, whether it's against USC on that big Saturday night game, I think that was on Fox, they've always come up short. And I don't think there's trust yet. And that short of either Oregon or USC as a top 5-7 team, I think the Pac-12 has a really, really tough climb. But if they do have one of those teams, I don't think anybody freaks out.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to say, but right. Look, if Oregon doesn't lose in a last second field goal to Auburn, there's a national title there, and I think people does that change the perception? No, but I think there's little things because people can write off that year that Utah beat Alabama in a bowl game. Well, Alabama didn't want to beat.
They were a Mountain West team then too.
I know, but I mean, it's still like I'm saying, it's still it's like people write that stuff off when it's like a one-off or it's hard for them, to get around, the reality because people are entirely going to believe what they want to believe.
Right.
And those perceptions don't happen overnight. Right. Like if I'm a Notre Dame fan and like Notre Dame's been really good, except when they played, teams that are more talented than them, they've gotten absolutely pummeled.
Sure.
And that's, you can say whatever you want, but ultimately it's a perception game, right? And when you're a top team, which used to be USC, when they're not very good, you can knock the ACC all you want. Right now, Clemson is as good, if not better than everybody else. The rest of the division, the rest of the conference doesn't look very good, but at least at the top, they're strong. And that's the stuff that people pay attention to.
Yep.
Once you start sorting out how good or how bad, like Arkansas was horrible this year. Mm-hmm. Nobody really cared though, because, you have these other teams that are heavyweight teams. Is like you very rarely have an argument whether Oregon State or Arkansas or Minnesota or Rutgers are the worst team, right? It's about the top of the division and top of the conference. And I think that's where it hurts, where, like you said, some of the Washington games, if Budda Baker picks off Jalen Hurts at the beginning of the playoff game, is that a different game now with Washington? Are they playing from the lead? Is who knows? I mean, my guess is it's probably not different, but one big play can make a big difference. We've seen plenty of examples of that.
Yeah, and I think I don't think it's actually unique to the Pac-12. And I still think the Pac-12 has a number of distribution and network and perception issues, regardless of the on-field and the top of the conference. But I don't think anybody, harkens back to the day when Georgia Tech played Wake Forest in the ACC championship game. That was not a strong ACC. That was not a good time for the ACC because of what it looked like at the top. If we see an SEC championship game of, I don't know, Missouri and Arkansas, are we going to think, man, the SEC is in a great place? I don't feel like we're going to. And I just think, the teams outside of the Pac-12, the power teams, it's probably harder because of their local talent to really fall like some of the teams in the Pac-12 have. But I don't think the dynamic of the Pac-12 having these issues is necessarily unique to the Pac-12. And I think you're right. It's just what and who is at the top.
Yeah, and that drives the bus.
Yep. All right. Bruce, thank you very much for your time. Everybody should listen to The Audible with Bruce and Stu Mandel, who is a lot of people consider to be the most dangerous man in college football media. I can't say too much why, but don't cross Stu. That's all I will say.
No, I mean, I don't think people know Stu has a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It would surprise them, but that's why he's the most dangerous guy.
You'll be on the sidelines this fall?
That's the plan.
That is the plan?
Yes.
That is the plan. And obviously, you are all over the place in a good way, for The Athletic, and really liked your piece about the Alabama coaching staff just sort of disappearing in the middle of the night, or at least Dan Enos, their offensive coordinator. And I really hope that we get to see more of you doing those types of stories all over the country.
I appreciate it. That story, that Alabama coaching staff, Saban transition story, that got probably twice as much interest as any story I've done in years. So if people haven't read it, it's actually the thing that I've pinned on my Twitter page. So check it out if you haven't, and I appreciate you saying that.
Perfect. All right. Go follow Bruce Feldman on Twitter. It's very easy to find him and read him. If you are not a subscriber to The Athletic, you are 100% missing out. I just read a piece about Klay Thompson's career at Washington State, an oral history of all of his weirdness, and it's probably worth the subscription just for that. So, Bruce, thank you very much for your time, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you, Dan.
All right, Dan, we are back. That was Bruce Feldman again, The Athletic, Fox Sports. I enjoyed the conversation at the top.
Yeah?
Talking about his opinion that his crew is in the best shape.
It's it's not a tough competition because there are just older former coaches and former players it's going to be tough to hang with a younger crew when you have Joe Davis and Brady Quinn, although Brady Quinn is now moving to the game day competitor that Fox is doing, mostly out of the studio, I think.
Okay. Just an interesting conversation. I was trying to rack my brain for who might be better than them, and I was really kind of coming up empty as I was listening back to that.
I mean, we have a very young play-by-play announcer who calls into the show or leaves a voicemail, and that leads me to believe, because we are so simpatico with food on the road, that perhaps his first priority is not hitting the gym.
Yeah.
Slim trim guy, Adam Amin.
Sure.
But priority is elsewhere, where it is for us. So it was obviously great to have Bruce on. What is I asked Bruce this too, though, with the gym stuff. What is your number one amenity?
In a hotel room?
Yeah, so is it bed comfort? Is it water pressure in the shower? Is it, size of the room? Is it having a suite and space? Is it
Can I get very super specific?
A bar, by all means.
My number one amenity is not going to be listed on any pamphlet.
Okay.
I prefer
Wi-Fi.
Well, Wi-Fi is always important, but that's like electricity at this point. I prefer a hotel room that doesn't have outlandishly hard water.
Okay.
And that's very difficult to find.
And hard water is water that is extremely acidic? What is it?
It's the water that when you hop in the shower and you soap yourself up.
Oh, it's mineral content.
Yeah, you feel like the water is sticking to you.
Sure. I know what you're talking about.
That grimy, sticky feeling that you get when you use the water in a hotel. Oftentimes, yeah, that's hard water. I like when you can come out of the shower feeling refreshed and not like you got to peel the water off yourself.
Mine are all water related. It is that shower water pressure. It is if there's an indoor pool available. I love that because living somewhere where winter can be particularly aggressive and I don't get to go swimming a whole bunch. I love that ability. Don't really go in the hot tub too much, but I will happily do a quick sea ball into the pool. And then just your luxurious bed, Ty. I want to sink in.
All right.
There's just something about a great hotel bed.
Fun interview. Thank you again to our friend Bruce Feldman.
Yep.
Again, The Athletic, Fox Sports. Always
Did
good
you
to talk
just
to him.
send an email to me as I was talking about a hotel?
I did, yeah. I did, actually.
Oh, my gosh.
Not about that.
Not about the show at all.
An unrelated business.
My God.
bulletin. Yeah. Okay.
Sometimes I feel like you just do not take me seriously.
On that note,
Yeah.
thanks again to Bruce. We will be back next week. I don't know what we'll do next week. Could do a Q&A next week. Could do another autopsy. We'll just have to figure that out. Write in, let us know what you think. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. The email inbox is always out there. solidverbal@gmail.com. And one final tidbit that I would like to throw out there.
Okay.
Our boy Taylor.
Oh, love Taylor.
Our boy Taylor, he is the chief reverbs engineer. He's been our trusted deputy for years.
Is still on or formerly of Red Shell Radio?
All over the place.
Okay.
Podcast extraordinaire.
Yeah.
Our good friend Taylor Schwink gets married this Saturday.
Oh, hell yeah.
This Saturday. So what I would ask everybody, it's not a secret verbal per se.
I know where you're going with this because we're going to
Perhaps-
talk honeymoon suite.
Yeah, perhaps the least secret verbal. But I want everyone out there, at a minimum, if you're on Twitter, please write to CT Schwink. That's CTSCHWINK.
Yeah.
At a minimum, offer him some congratulations, either before the wedding, after the wedding, what have you. And if you so desire, please offer him some wedding advice about,
Yeah.
the reception, the honeymoon,
Vows.
anything, whatever, anything that you can
Honeymoon.
muster up, wedding advice wise. Send it to our boy CT Schwink. Again, trusted deputy of the show for a long time, one of our true fans, true supporters for, gosh, I can't even tell you how many years. And we're happy for him. We're excited for him. It's a real cool thing that's about to go down in his life. So please join in on the fun and offer him your support.
An incredibly important part of the Solid Verbal family of like 4.5.
Absolutely.
Shout out
Absolutely.
Taylor. Shout out Courtney. Shout out to not wearing that hideous Maryland flag bow tie that he wore to the Chicago
That's mean.
live.
Come on.
No, I mean at his wedding, he should not be wearing that, while exchanging vows. But you wear it all the time otherwise. Yeah, give him some advice and let's hope for the best for them. Great couple.
All right. Well, on that note, we will be back next week. Stay tuned in the meantime to the Solid Verbal Twitter feed, Facebook, Instagram, all the usual hotspots. For that guy over there, Dan Rubenstein, my name is Ty Hildenbrandt. We will catch you all soon. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your week, your weekend. Until next time, stay solid.
Peace.